It's 1 a.m. and welcome to Polar Day, which is when we have 24 hours of sunlight all day, every day for 4 months.
Imagine living in a freezer. Living at 78 degrees north isn't just a lifestyle choice. It is a daily negotiation with a landscape that is fundamentally designed to keep humans out. To live where Cecilia Blomdahl lives is to reside in a place where the earth is permanently frozen. The wind can strip the heat from your body in seconds, and the nearest major hospital is a flight across a frozen ocean away. It is a world of beautiful, shimmering extremes that demands a level of physical and mental resilience most of us will never have to summon. In Svalbard, the environment is the ultimate boss. For 4 months of the year, the sun doesn't just set, it vanishes entirely, leaving the archipelago in a deep, bone-chilling darkness where the only light comes from the stars, the moon, or the dancing neon of the aurora borealis. Then, as if to compensate, the sun returns to stay for another 4 months, never dipping below the horizon, and challenging the human internal clock to its absolute limit. It is a place where you cannot simply pop out for a walk without a rifle slung over your shoulder, because you share the streets and the shores with the world's largest land carnivore, the polar bear. The logistical hardness of this life is staggering. In a climate where temperatures regularly plunge to minus 30 degrees Celsius, the simplest tasks become Herculean. Car engines must be kept on heaters, skin must never be exposed to the air for long, and the constant threat of avalanches or sudden whiteout blizzards means that every trip into the wilderness is a calculated risk. Yet, it is within this harsh, unforgiving frame that Cecilia has managed to build a life of warmth and beauty. She doesn't just endure the Arctic, she has mastered the art of thriving in a place that constantly reminds you of your own fragility. The comedy of convenience. Of course, thriving in the Arctic often looks like a high-stakes comedy of errors to anyone living in a temperate climate. In the rest of the world, if you want a cup of tea, you walk 10 feet to the kitchen and press a button. In Cecilia's early Arctic days, wanting a cup of tea was practically a military operation. It involved the Arctic Shuffle, a 20-minute process of squeezing into thermal leggings, wool mid-layers, windproof outer shells, and boots heavy enough to serve as anchors, all just to hike outside and haul plastic jugs of water back from a communal pump. By the time the kettle actually whistled, you'd burned enough calories to justify a 3-course meal. Then there is the surreal humor of her grocery runs. Most people forget their reusable bags. Cecilia has to remember her rifle. There is a specific kind of wit required to live in a town where you might see a neighbor casually chatting outside the world's northernmost supermarket, with a firearm slung over their shoulder, as if it were a trendy crossbody bag. It's a place where bad weather doesn't mean you need an umbrella. It means your front door might be completely drifted shut, requiring you to literally shovel your way out just to see if the mail arrived. Spoiler, the mail plane couldn't land because of the blizzard. Cecilia leans into this absurdity with a wink, showing us that while the Arctic is trying its hardest to be inhospitable, a well-steamed latte and a sense of humor are the best frostbite prevention known to man. In the world of social media, where trends move faster than a notification, Cecilia Blomdahl has managed to do the impossible, make living in pitch-black darkness for months on end look like the ultimate cozy girl dream. Originally from Gothenburg, Sweden, Cecilia's journey to becoming the internet's favorite Arctic resident began with a classic 3-month adventure that turned into a decade-long love affair with the North Pole, from hotel management to high latitudes. Before she became the internet's premier guide to the high Arctic, Cecilia Blomdahl was a self-described big city girl with a passport full of stamps and a career trajectory aimed straight for the corporate ladder. Here is a deeper look at those formative years and the leap of faith that changed her life. The nomad years, Ireland, England, and Australia. Before she became the face of the high Arctic, Cecilia's early 20 were defined by a relentless global hop that saw her trading the familiar streets of Sweden for the fast-paced world of international luxury hospitality. This wasn't just a period of travel. It was a deep dive into the high-stakes world of guest services where she honed the meticulous attention to detail that now defines her cinematic videos. During her years in Ireland and England, she didn't just pick up the language. She mastered the nuances of high-pressure environments, working in hotels where the art of the welcome was a professional requirement. This background in hospitality is the secret ingredient to her current success. It's why her digital community feels less like a fan base and more like guests in her home. She learned how to anticipate what people want to see and how to make a cold, remote cabin feel like a five-star sanctuary. The contrast in her journey reached its peak when she moved to Australia. There, she lived a life that was the literal polar opposite of her current existence, spending her days under a relentless sun and navigating the culture of endless beaches and surf. This period provided her with a unique perspective on sunlight and heat, which perhaps explains why she is so uniquely equipped to appreciate the subtle beauty of the Arctic. She experienced the too much of the Australian sun before finding the just enough of the Arctic's elusive light. Eventually, the pull of home led to a Swedish return. She settled back into her roots in Gothenburg, working at a local hotel and briefly contemplating a more traditional, stable career path. She was good at the work. She genuinely loved the rhythm of the hotel world, but there was a persistent, quiet itch for something more. She had conquered the bustling cities and the tropical coasts, yet she felt she was missing a piece of the puzzle. It was during this final stint in Sweden that the suggestion of a short trip to Svalbard arose. A 3-month detour that would ultimately turn her from a hotel manager into a modern-day pioneer. The itch for one more great adventure before settling into a permanent career. The 2015 pivot. Where is Svalbard? The move to the Arctic was a masterclass in impulsive bravery, born from a casual conversation rather than a lifelong dream. In fact, Cecilia hadn't even heard of Svalbard until some of her hotel colleagues mentioned they were heading to the remote archipelago for seasonal work. Intrigued by the sheer mystery of a place so far north it barely appeared on some maps, she decided to throw caution to the wind. She submitted a spontaneous application for a job at the same location as her friends, and successfully landed a position as a booking manager at a local restaurant. At the time, she viewed the move as nothing more than a temporary detour. Like many Svalbardians who end up staying for a lifetime, she told her family and friends back in Sweden that she would be gone for just 3 months. She saw it as a final quirky chapter, a bit of frost-covered character building, before returning to the real life of a bustling city and a traditional career path. She packed her bags with the expectation of a short-term adventure, never imagining she was actually packing for the rest of her life. Her arrival in November 2015 was a surreal experience that bordered on the cinematic. She landed during the literal peak of the polar night, a time when the sun descends so far below the horizon that day, and night become indistinguishable. Because it was pitch black 24 hours a day, she lived her first few weeks in a total visual vacuum, having absolutely no context for the geography surrounding her. She walked to work and back in a dark void, sensing the scale of the mountains only by the way the wind whistled through them. It wasn't until the first full moon rose weeks later, casting a ghostly silver glow over the landscape, that the curtains finally pulled back. In a breathtaking moment of realization, she saw for the first time that her new home was perched on the edge of a massive, jagged fjord surrounded by towering Arctic peaks. That sudden, illuminated revelation of the island's raw beauty was the moment the 3-month plan began to dissolve, replaced by a deep, permanent connection to the wilderness. The transformation of a beginner. It is fascinating to think that the woman who now captures the Arctic with cinema-grade precision once struggled to explain to her mother why she was living in a place that looked like a black void on FaceTime. Her evolution from a hospitality professional to a visual poet of the North is a story of accidental passion. The noon and darkness dilemma. When Cecilia first arrived in the Arctic, her phone photos were a blurry mess of grain and shadows, failing completely to capture the majestic reality of her new home. Explaining the concept of the blue hour, that brief, ethereal moment during the polar night when the sky turns a deep electric cobalt, to her family back in Sweden was nearly impossible. To them, it sounded like she was living in a bleak, black void, but to Cecilia, the darkness felt alive and full of color. Driven by a need to bridge this gap, she eventually invested in a basic camera simply as a communication tool. She didn't set out to be an artist. She just wanted to prove that the darkness wasn't scary or depressing, but vibrant and inviting. This necessity forced her to teach herself the complex technicalities of long exposure photography and the delicate art of painting with light. These hours spent experimenting in the cold were less about building a portfolio and more about making her loved ones understand why she felt so compelled to stay. However, she quickly discovered that photography at -30 degrees Celsius is essentially a combat sport. The Arctic environment is hostile to electronics. She learned the hard way that metal camera bodies can freeze to bare skin, and that batteries which should last for hours in a city can die in mere minutes in the tundra. These harsh lessons sparked a deep obsession with gear and technical problem-solving. She had to find the perfect razor-thin balance between high-tech performance and pure survival, eventually mastering the specialized kits that now allow her to share the Arctic's beauty with millions of people around the world. The drone that changed everything. The purchase of her first DJI drone served as the definitive turning point in her journey, transforming her from a curious observer into a dedicated storyteller. In a place like Svalbard, much of the true majesty is hidden from the ground, tucked away behind jagged, impenetrable peaks or sprawling across frozen fjords that are impossible to traverse on foot. The drone became her eyes in the sky, allowing her to bypass the physical limitations of the tundra and witness the archipelago in its full staggering glory. The first time she launched her drone over a glacier, the footage that returned was a revelation. She saw the intricate neon-blue veins of the ancient ice and the overwhelming, massive scale of a wilderness that felt untouched by time. It was a perspective that few humans in history have ever been privileged to see, and it fundamentally changed how she viewed her surroundings. She wasn't just living in a town anymore, she was a tiny part of a colossal, breathing ecosystem. This led to her true aha moment. She realized that while thousands of people around the world lived in beautiful locations, almost no one was documenting the domestic, everyday side of the high Arctic with this level of cinematic beauty. There was a void where the story of living, not just surviving, in the North should be. She made the conscious choice to stop taking mere vacation photos and started crafting a narrative. By blending the grand, sweeping vistas of the glaciers with the intimate details of her daily life, she began telling a story that resonated far beyond the Arctic Circle. Trading heels for hiking boots. The transition from the corporate ladder to the mountain ridge wasn't just a career change, it was a total identity shift. The wardrobe overhaul. Cecilia often reflects on her former life in Gothenburg, where her daily uniform consisted of high heels and designer handbags. Back then, luxury was defined by the prestige of a brand or the aesthetic of an office. Today, her definition of luxury has been completely recalibrated by the Arctic environment. High heels have been replaced by heavy-duty hiking boots and snowmobile shoes, and her most prized possessions are now high-quality merino wool base layers and parkas with high windproof ratings. In her world, luxury is no longer about looking expensive. It is about the quiet luxury of staying warm and safe in sub-zero temperatures, finding peace in the tundra. In the hospitality industry, Cecilia's life was governed by the artificial urgency of ringing phones and guest demands. On Svalbard, she discovered a different kind of authority, the weather and the wind. Her schedule is no longer dictated by a corporate calendar, but by whether the visibility is clear enough to hike or if the wind is too strong to take the boat out. She successfully traded the fluorescent, artificial lights of a hotel lobby for the natural light of the aurora borealis, finding a deep-seated groundedness in the unreal landscape that no professional promotion could ever provide. This shift has allowed her to embrace a lifestyle where her regular days involve drinking coffee while watching the northern lights or witnessing reindeer wander past her window. She didn't just move to a new location. She built an entirely new lens through which to see the world, one where success is measured by the stillness of the morning and the beauty of a season that knows no moderation. Life at the top of the world. To truly understand Cecilia's life, you have to look past the cozy aesthetics and see the grit required to live on the edge of the world. Her cabin isn't just a backdrop. It is a fortress of comfort against a beautiful yet indifferent wilderness, the rustic years hauling water and frozen pipes. Before her current home became a sanctuary of Arctic Hygge, Cecilia spent years navigating a much more primitive and demanding setup. This period of her life was defined by a raw, unshielded connection to the environment, where the most basic human needs required significant physical effort. The trial of the water run. During those early years, the simplest comforts were hard-won victories. To enjoy something as basic as a cup of tea, Cecilia couldn't just turn on a tap. She had to prepare for an expedition. This meant layering on 5 separate pieces of wool clothing, bracing against the Arctic wind, and hiking to a communal water station. She would fill heavy plastic jugs with water and haul them back to her cabin, often through blinding blizzards or the total darkness of the polar night. This grueling daily ritual transformed her perspective on resources, turning a liter of water from a utility into a precious commodity, the luxury of a shower. In that cabin, a shower was never a mindless morning ritual. It was a logistical event. Without running water on site, maintaining personal hygiene meant planning excursions to the local gym or coordinating visits to a friend's house in town. This lack of immediate convenience stripped away the noise of modern life and taught her a profound, deep appreciation for the small joys that most people take for granted. It grounded her in a reality where warmth and cleanliness were not guaranteed, but earned, making the eventual transition to her current home all the more meaningful. Building a sanctuary. Eventually, working alongside Christopher, Cecilia transformed her living situation into a masterclass of Nordic design. They moved from the primitive to the purposeful, creating a home that balances rugged durability with high-end comfort. Their sanctuary features warm wood tones and massive windows designed to invite in every stray beam of light that hits the fjord. Central to this new life is her high-end espresso machine, which serves as the literal heart of the home. It represents the ultimate bridge between her two worlds, the high-performance sophistication of her former life and the cozy, unshakable peace she has found at the top of the world. Grimm, the Guardian, and the Star. While Cecilia narrates the story with her infectious energy, Grimm provides the quiet, steady soul of their Arctic life. As a Finnish Lapphund, he is not merely a companion but a creature evolutionarily perfected for this exact climate. His thick, double-layered coat and sturdy build mean that while humans are shivering under layers of high-tech gear, Grimm is finally in his element. He's the heartbeat of the cabin, a constant reminder that life doesn't just survive in the cold, it thrives. Grimm also serves a vital, functional role as the ultimate polar bear lookout. In Svalbard, venturing outside the town limits requires a high degree of vigilance, and while Cecilia always carries a rifle as a mandatory safety measure, she relies heavily on Grimm's superior senses. He acts as a living, breathing early warning system. His keen nose can catch a scent, and his ears can pick up a distant crunch in the snow long before a human would notice anything. This partnership creates a unique bond of trust, where Cecilia provides the safety of the cabin, and Grimm provides the situational awareness needed to navigate the wild safely. Watching him transform into a true dog of the tundra is one of the most entertaining aspects of Cecilia's content. At temperatures like -20 degrees Celsius, when most dogs would be huddled by a heater, Grimm is at his absolute peak of happiness. He can be seen diving headfirst into waist-deep powder or nonchalantly napping in a snowbank just because he can. Seeing him find such pure, unadulterated joy in the middle of a sub-zero winter is a constant reminder for Cecilia and her millions of viewers of why they stay. He is the fluff-covered proof that the Arctic is not a place of lack, but a place of abundance for those built to embrace it. Masterclass in Arctic Hygge. Cecilia has fundamentally redefined the concept of Hygge for an extreme environment, proving that coziness is as much a mental fortification as it is a physical one. In her hands, the traditional Nordic pursuit of comfort becomes a survival strategy against the most dramatic seasonal shifts on the planet. Her polar night strategy is perhaps her most vital contribution to the Arctic cozy aesthetic. When the sun sets in late October and refuses to return until February, the psychological toll of 24/7 darkness can be immense. Cecilia counters this seasonal void with a dedicated form of light therapy. She transforms her cabin into a glowing beacon, with dozens of candles and fairy lights draped over every conceivable surface. By shifting her mindset to treat the darkness as a season for deep reflection and interior warmth, rather than a heavy burden, she has taught millions how to find beauty in the absence of the sun. The midnight sun shift presents the opposite challenge, where the sun remains high in the sky for 4 months straight. Cecilia candidly shares the surreal reality of this white season, from the necessity of industrial-grade blackout blinds to the strange experience of losing all track of time. It is not uncommon to see her documenting a boat trip through the fjords or a spontaneous mountain hike at 2 a.m. with the sun shining as brightly as if it were midday. This embrace of the daylight that never ends shows her incredible adaptability, turning a potential sleep deprivation nightmare into a season of endless energy and exploration. Perhaps her most famous and beloved recurring ritual is her coffee routine. There is something deeply satisfying and almost defiant about watching her meticulously steam milk and pour a perfect heart into a latte while a snowstorm rages at 60 miles per hour just inches away on the other side of the glass. The latte ritual is more than just a caffeine fix. It is a small, beautiful act of civilization maintained in the heart of the wilderness. It serves as a reminder that no matter how wild the world outside becomes, one can always curate a moment of peace, warmth, and perfection within. A modern pioneer. What makes Cecilia so captivating is her seamless ability to blend the extreme with the mundane, creating a bridge between a life that seems like a sci-fi movie and the relatable habits of a modern woman. One moment she is navigating a high-powered snowmobile across a vast, blue-veined glacier to explore prehistoric ice caves. The next, she is heading into town to get her nails done, or navigating the aisles of the world's northernmost supermarket. This regular life in a unique place vibe, where a polar bear siren is as common as a coffee break, has earned her a devoted following of over 5 million people across YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Her reach extends far beyond the flickering screen of a smartphone. Cecilia is now a New York Times best-selling author of the book Life on Svalbard, which serves as both a stunning visual diary and a guide to finding home in the most inhospitable corners of the globe. As a professional photographer and videographer, she has meticulously documented her evolution from a curious newcomer to a master of her craft, using her lens to translate the harsh Arctic winds into a visual poem of resilience and warmth. Ultimately, she has turned her fascination with the Arctic into a thriving, multifaceted career that serves a higher purpose. She isn't just showing us the snow, she is teaching her global audience that mindset is the ultimate survival tool. By demonstrating that one can find joy in the middle of a 100-day night, she proves that if you bundle up, light a candle, and look for the light, even the darkest winters can be beautiful.